Hey everybody, this is the Wildcard preview. So as you can see, the Patriots and the Eagles, they're set, they're locked into the first seed. But now we've got several matchups here. So the first one features the San Diego Chargers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Chargers here are the third-ranked power-ranked team. They have the fifth best offense and sixth best defense. So that's really impressive coming out of the gate. And you see them, again, top six in offense and defense. They are 12-5, second seed. Their main players are Aaron Rodgers, Antonio Gates, Antonio Holmes. Got that punter, so that's good. And then they've got Jonathan Vilma. As you can see, Rodgers threw for 4,000 yards. We have Marion Barber, who filled in for most of the season when Beanie Wells was injured. But Beanie Wells is back, so they have their power back in play. Then we had the veteran Steve Smith getting 1,400 yards and 16 receiving touchdowns. Huge season for him. And then Santonio Holmes with 1,100 yards. Antonio Gates, Hester, Cottom continue the receptions. Then you go to Pittsburgh, who is the challenger. Now they are the 21st ranked offense and 24th ranked defense. So they're in the 20s. So the fact they got to the playoffs is quite the shock. I'm not expecting much from them. I mean, they do have a 1,000-yard rusher with MJD, but they are still the 31st ranked rushing team. Big Ben has 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, but 17 interceptions. His leading receiver was Emmanuel Sanders with 1,200 yards. Delaney Walker, who is kind of one of the best tight ends in the league in my franchise. The rookie Malcolm Floyd, Malcolm Floyd, I believe that's his name. We can double check that. Let's see. No, Michael Floyd, excuse me. Michael Floyd with 772 yards. Derek Hagan, the acquisition from the Jets, 453 yards. I don't know if those yards are all with the Steelers, but a lot of them are, because that's where he kind of caught fire. So with that matchup, it's going to be hard for Pittsburgh to beat San Diego, but there's a chance because Pittsburgh has done more shocking things. But as we switch to the NFC, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus their rival, the Carolina Panthers. So Tampa Bay, they're the 9th ranked offense, 22nd ranked defense. They are first in rushing because obviously they have Darren McFadden, who had 2,000 yards rushing and 17 TDs. That is their bread and butter. That's what makes them a solid team. When in doubt, as you can see, 227 attempts. I don't know. Let's see. Is that a league best? Let me see. We're going to go to attempts. Yeah. He's been handed the ball more times than any other running back in the league, which explains why he has the explosiveness and the runs he's had. 29th ranked pass offense. So that's where they're lagging. I mean, Blaine Gabbert had 32 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. He's been solid. He's been a solid game manager for them, but he's nothing special. Who is special is Josh Gordon, their 4th round rookie, 16 TDs, 1,200 yards. He is likely the NFC Rookie of the Year on offense. Then it drops to Owen Daniels. Jerry Maclin and Simpson, they've been injured during the season, if I recall. So they had about less than 500 yards. So I guess you could blame Gabbert for Gabbert's help this season. But they were like, let's see, what was their record before? They were, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, 9-1. 9-2, so they 9-2, and then they started to drift a little bit, losing some of these games. But they are still one of the dominant teams in this league. They are the 2nd seed, and they take on their rival, who they know very well. Now, this rival, the Panthers, they are running with Flacco, who's 3,800 yards passing. You see, they're the 8th ranked offense, but they're the 30th ranked defense. And this was a team that used to be stacked in defense, and they still kind of are. You can see their best players being Peppers, who's old, Daniel Manning, Michael Huff, the safety duo, left tackle Bryant McKinney, and then a cornerback, Devin McCourty. So they're very loaded on defense, but they're less loaded than they once were, because they used to be a top 1, top 2 defense, and then they lost some players. So being 30th is not really where you'd expect them to be. When you look at their offense, they have Lorenzo Booker getting 1,300 yards, 13 TDs. The Panthers in my franchise have had this identity for a while where they were under John Fox, where they were basically a 2 running back team. It started with Larry Johnson and Michael Turner. Then it became Michael Turner and Booker. Then now it's Booker and Ben Tate. Soon it'll probably be Ben Tate and insert new running back here. So that's how they've been running, and Booker is no exception. Now he's the lead back, and he rose to the occasion. They have two 1,000-yard receivers, and T.Y. Hilton, the rookie, and Torrey Smith. And yes, Torrey Smith is with Joe Flacco, like they were in real life in Baltimore, but they're now here together with the Panthers. Stovall, who I'm not a big fan of, but he's been pretty reliable. He got 7 touchdowns there. Anthony Fasano, their tight end. Holiday, finishing up their attack. So again, I would predict the Buccaneers are probably the most likely team to come away with it. Then you've got the Texans versus the Colts, another division team. So the Houston Texans, we see they are the 17th ranked offense, but the number 2 defense. And that's major in this league because we see a lot of other teams not ranking high in defense, but the Texans are. Mike Doss, Terrell Suggs, Josh Wilson, and then you go into C.J. Spiller, who's their star on offense. Now, this was a team that started off with Jake Locker last year, and they started Jake Locker this year. However, it came down to replacing him, and this is, of course, Jeff Fisher is their coach with Texans legend coach Mac Brown as offensive coordinator, swapping Locker for the veteran Jackson, and Jackson basically led them to the playoffs. As you see, he has 19 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Locker, in only a couple games, had 11 TDs and 10 interceptions. C.J. Spiller is their star on offense. You see 1,400 yards, which has them the 12th ranked rushing attack in the league. And then there's Lewis Murphy, Harry Douglas, Stevie Johnson, Jermichael Finley, Stephen Hill as their top receivers. Yes, they are very weak, and that's something that they've tried to address, and it just hasn't really worked out for them very well. But despite all of that, their defense and this team has come away with some important wins, and they are the division leader with the AFC South. Now the Colts, they are the 12th ranked offense, and they are the 9th ranked defense. One of the main reasons is their rushing attack. So Chris Johnson is huge for them, 99 overall. He has progressed very quickly, and he is tearing people up. The only problem is Chris Johnson is injured, and he's out with a quad tear for 6 weeks, which means he's on injured reserve. So Brady Quinn has to pick it up and then pick up the workload to be that champion quarterback that nobody thinks he is. Tyrod Taylor did play the first 2 games of the season when they went 2-0, and then Quinn came in to go 8-7. And then Leon Washington also has some responsibility here to take the load from Chris Johnson. So then you have Reggie Wayne, who's still there, and he is old man. Is he 34 now or 33 now? And then Pierre Garçon, who came as a free agent from the Titans, Victor Cruz, Jeremy Shockey, Chris Johnson there as a receiving running back. So in this matchup between the Colts and the Texans, you can never doubt the Colts, but Houston does have the advantage where the Colts don't have Chris Johnson. So Houston's home field advantage, and then the Colts losing their best player, it's going to rest on Leon Washington and Brady Quinn. Can Leon Washington do a serviceable job as running back, and can Quinn rise up to the moment of the playoffs? Now, here's probably the biggest game of the week. 49ers, 3rd seed, versus the Atlanta Falcons, the 6th seed. So let's look at San Francisco. San Francisco has won the Super Bowl 2 times, and they've lost it once in the past several years. So they are the reigning Super Bowl champions. You can see they are the 11th ranked offense, but the 4th ranked defense. And Haloti Ngata, Brandon Merriweather, Ashton Yabouti, who I absolutely love how he progressed. Do you know who Ashton Yabouti is? Probably not, but you do in this franchise because he's been an all-star cornerback for many years. Andy Lee's solid. Jamal Brown. What is Breeze's overall? He's under 87? Oh, he's an 86 overall at 33 years old. Okay, so he's not one of their top 5. Regardless, he's still an elite quarterback. You see 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 3,500 yards. They're the 11th ranked pass attack, 9th ranked rush attack with Arian Foster, who's been dynamic. Deion Lewis is a fantastic running back for Drew Brees. There have been a lot of screen passes I've used him on. He's, I guess, only 94 yards there, but he's a good receiving back, good, quick, speedy back to kind of replace Foster for a few plays to give him a breather. Antonio Pittman also has been a solid running back. He didn't get as many touches this season, but Pittman was a big factor last year when Foster was out. Then you have James Jones, Des Bryant, Brent Selleck, Jason Avant, rookie Alshon Jeffrey, all getting about 500 yards or more, 800 with James Jones. So they really spread the ball around this season. They also had some injuries this season too. They were suffering a lot. Like, I think there was a game where it was like Des Bryant, Jeffrey, and Avant were all like injured. So the 49ers were very resourceful, but you see that rushing defense, very solid. But the fact that they're just to go to the run doesn't matter against the Falcons, because the Falcons have, of course, Peyton Manning, who is the league-leading passer, 48 passing touchdowns. They are the number 1 pass team, and they're the 30th rush team. So I expect the 49ers to shut down the run, because Willis McGahee does have 1,200 yards, 13 TDs, but after him, they did sign Steven Jackson late in the season just to have a better depth, because LeGarrette Blount and Brandon Jacobs aren't that great, and more so because I think Madden screws up the body types, because Brandon Jacobs and LeGarrette Blount should be these almost offensive lineman type guys. They were really big running backs, but because Madden doesn't do a good job of having body types, they just look like a skinny running back, and so they're basically worthless as a power back because their size doesn't match up with who they really were. But I did bring in Steven Jackson, the veteran from Miami, from Dallas from before. So he's the backup to McGahee. But I don't suspect much from them. I expect Manning to just chuck the ball as many times as possible. And we see Larry Fitzgerald, Braylon Edwards, and even Meacham, who's only got 5 yards away from 600. We see Deion Butler, who's got like 97 speed and 98 acceleration, something crazy. He has been a favorite target of Peyton Manning. Bubba Franks, his tight end, they used to work together back in Indianapolis, because Bubba Franks was with Green Bay. Then he went to Indianapolis. Then he kind of bounced around a bit. I think Bubba Franks was in Denver for a while. But he reunites with Peyton Manning. Julius Thomas, the younger tight end, kind of backing up. But we see their star players are all offense, from Fitzgerald, Manning, McGahee. They do have Bob Sanders and Clay Matthews, which they have the 31st ranked defense, but they do score a lot of points. They're the second ranked. So they score a lot of points, but they get scored on a lot. They just squeaked into the playoffs. I think this game between the 49ers and the Falcons is the game to watch, because I can see the 49ers winning, because they do have a solid team around everybody. They're a Super Bowl winner. But Peyton Manning has also won 2 Super Bowls back-to-back. Now, can he do it with the Falcons in year 1? I don't know, but I would never doubt Peyton Manning. So that's a major toss-up game. That's going to be the game to watch. Then we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Denver Broncos. So Cleveland now breaks the only team that has yet to make a playoff appearance in my franchise. Every other team has. Cleveland now makes their first run at the playoffs. They are the 6th ranked offense and the 10th ranked defense. You can see it's led by Terrell Pryor Sr., who has 3,300 yards passing, but their rushing is where he's really spectacular. You know, he rushed for 1,000 yards in his rookie season, so that was one of the reasons he was Rookie of the Year. But he's only got 541 yards, which is still really good. 7 rushing TDs. His interceptions are a bit higher than I want it to be. But you have Felix Jones, 875 yards, Joique Bell, Peyton Hillis. Cribbs is only there because he normally is a wide receiver, but he's my kick returner. But I have him as a running back, so I can put him as a receiver, a running back, do trick plays with them. I haven't done many of them, of course. Obaniah has been their power back. You see 11 yards, 9 attempts, 5 touchdowns. I think you know what his purpose is. And then Anthony Gonzalez had a great season with Pryor, and he has another good season here, just 12 yards shy of 1,000, 5 TDs. Then Brian Robisky, his Ohio State buddy. Dwayne Allen, their first-round pick. 510 yards. Courtney Roby was signed like week 15, 16 because I needed to pick up a better receiver for them, because Gonzalez has been improving well, but Robisky is still a little mediocre. Travis Benjamin is good. He's just fast. Ben Watson's fine, but I wanted to get a better receiver, and Courtney Roby's like 6'3", 6'4", more prototype receiver if the Browns want to make it to the playoffs. Their top players is Joe Thomas, Shane Olivia, so 2 O-linemen. Stanford Rout is kind of like their Joe Hayden. He's been their reliable cornerback for years. B.J. Raji was the better first-round pick a few years back. Great selection for them. He's been a lockdown nose tackle. And then they traded their first-round pick to the Seattle Seahawks to acquire Troy Polamalu in week like 5 or 6. And I think it was a great decision, because they needed some veteran presence, and their safety core, they needed a better safety for that matter. So they took a risk and brought in a 32-year-old, 34 maybe. Let's see, how old is he? Maybe just 30. 31, okay. 31 safety, and they had 71 overall, and then their strong safety is TJ Ward, who's 74. But getting someone like Troy Polamalu, I thought was worth the first-round pick to try to get the Browns to truly win this division, which they did. Now they're going to play Denver. Now, Denver is pretty pathetic. I don't know how the hell they got here, but they found ways to win. And that's, you look at DeBrickashaw Ferguson, their left tackle, one of the best in the league. Luke Kuechly, one of the best middle linebackers, and good choices for them. Bradshaw, who is high overall. I don't think he runs that well when I'm playing with him, but I did give him an all-star contract there. Brian Leonard, one of their early picks, fullback. And then you have Sam Bradford, who has really been trashed for most of his career, those first 2 seasons. But apparently Doug Marrone and Pat Shurmur got him on the right track, and he had a solid season this year, just enough to get them into the playoffs. They are a 24th ranked offense, 8th ranked defense, so maybe the defense is a little bit more to the credit of their wins. But Bradford, again, 22 to 20, touchdown to interceptions, not great. Cutler only threw 2 passes, or 7 passes, 2 completions, and 2 interceptions. So he's thrown as many interceptions as completions. So Cutler is definitely not having the career we thought he would. He went from Green Bay to the Rams. Now he's a backup in Denver. And I thought Cutler could have taken the starting job away from Bradford, but every time Cutler had that small ounce of playtime, he just screwed it up every time. And then Bradford started to win games. And so they started out really pathetic. It was like, let's see, what was it? 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 1-4, 1-3, excuse me. 1-3, 2-3, 3. Oh, okay, they picked up. But they started off slow, like that 0-3 record. But they've turned it around, made the playoffs. You see Bradshaw with 1,400 yards, 17 TDs. Bradford, the second best rusher, so they kind of need a better backup running back there. And then you have AJ Green, Mohamed Sanu. So yes, they're both Bengals receivers in real life. Now they're buddies here in Denver. Miles Austin, Craig Stevens, Beckham. They probably need a better tight end starter on this team. And then you have Ahmad Bradshaw. I think they traded away Bubba Franks, which is why and he was their main tight end, but Bubba Franks is old. So they were trying to get younger, and because they did, they made the playoffs. So in that matchup, it's a toss-up. I mean, I think Denver's pretenders, but then again, Cleveland can also be a pretender. They are coming in as the weakest. They're the 4th seed, so the weakest home team. We'll see if Cleveland's able to put together a win and get their first playoff win in a long time. But I did get them to the playoffs faster than in real life when it was like 2019 season that they actually, whenever it was with Baker in his, I think, 3rd season, making the playoffs. But as for the last playoff game here, the Packers versus the Bears. So Bears just lost. The Packers just beat the Bears 28-14. But they did have Jason Campbell, starting quarterback, and he got hurt. So we have the number 1 overall pick in 2009, Matthew Stafford, versus, I believe it was the number 2 overall pick, Mark Sanchez. So Sanchez lost his starting job. Now he gets it back because of the injured Campbell. But we're going to start talking about the Packers now, who are the 13th ranked offense and the 14th ranked defense. Nothing spectacular. They just got through. We have Mike Tomlin as coach with Adam Gase and Todd Bowles as coordinators. You can look at Stafford with 32 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He was like the league interception leader a few years back, which was not great for him. LeSean McCoy is 1,100 yards rusher, but he has a partial ACL tear, so he is out for the season. So they've been relying on James Starks, who I know his number's not correct, but forgive me, Packers fans, and then Ronnie Hillman, the rookie. They've been kind of doing the dual back system since he's been out, and so you can see they have almost a balance of 300 yards each. Now, where this team has potential is you have Antonio Brown, Randall Cobb, Julian Edelman, Jordan Cameron, who's been a solid tight end. His overall's not great, but he's been playing well. And backup's Dante Stallworth. So they have some weapons here on this team. They are weaker because of not having LeSean McCoy, because that was a major alternative to just Stafford passing. That running game was important to them. And then we have Chicago. Now, Chicago acquired Campbell in a trade last offseason because the Falcons signed Peyton Manning, and they had no need for Jason Campbell. And the Falcons were the number 1 team last year. They were, or maybe they're number 2, but they were a top team last year because of Campbell. But they traded Campbell away for the chance of having Manning and hoping that Manning could win them a Super Bowl. Well, he was 10-6 as a starter. And against the Packers, he started out okay, and then he got hurt. You can see 28-17. So if we actually go to that game, it's not here, it's over here. Regular season. We're going to go all the way on week 18 for the box scores. So he was, as you can see, you had 2 of 2, 20 yards. He was already off to a hot start, but then just couldn't finish the game. So that's really rough for Chicago. But now it's the number 1, number 2 overall picks going at it in this first round of the playoffs, which is exciting. The Bears do have the number 1 defense, which is nothing to shy away from. You see Tommy Harris, Lito Shepherd as some of the top defensive options and leaders on this team. Golden Tate has some explosiveness. As you can see, Tate has 1,100 yards this season, 15 TDs. Mark Ingram, their second year player, has almost 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. Glenn Coffey has been a reliable second running back, and that leads them being the 5th rushing offense in the league. Passing was a little bit lower, but he was at least somewhat efficient. But Eddie Royal, who they acquired from their rival Minnesota Vikings, exploded this season, 787 yards. Great game, great season for him. Randy McMichael, Ogletree, all part of this Bears offense. So, I would love to see your predictions. Feel free to throw them in the chat or the comments. Please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. Again, I try to have unique Madden concepts, so hopefully you enjoy this 32-team franchise. I will be sharing the gameplay footage of all these playoff games, and then the Super Bowl is normally I do a commentary of the entire game, whereas mostly I do like the highlights of the game for each of these. But hope you enjoyed this series, and you keep enjoying the series. Let me know what your predictions are. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?